Hi, my dear Astro family. Today we want to be speaking about the Pisces new moon, which is going to be occurring on the 2nd of March, and it's going to be 5:35 p.m. UK time. Now, 12 degree, so this is falling actually onto Cancerian decan and also Cancerian Druid as well. So the moon energy is actually pretty emphasized here. So the moon is something to do with our key to happiness. So this is going to be very much highlighted of why we are happy, what is holding us back, and how we can make ourselves happy actually. Now, the new moons are always about new beginnings. This is the time when we should be planting the seeds, but also the new moon is giving us the opportunity to reflect on something. Typically, around new moon energies, we tend to be going inwards, and this is actually very emphasized with the Piscean energies because it is about going inward, retreating a little bit and then having a look at, what is our insecurities and so forth. So this time around, you are meant to be reflecting on your dreams, what inspires you, whether you are able to believe in something which might look impossible, but also it is telling you to manifest, to imagine things, to be a little bit more spiritually inclined, but more importantly, to forgive yourself and to forgive others as well around you in your environment. Now, I kind of feel like Pisces can be quite a challenging sign actually, because if Pisces doesn't resonate on the highest level, then it tends to feel weak. It doesn't want to go ahead in life. It tends to retreat and escape from reality. It wants to be, it's kind of like a spiritual cave where I'm having my winter sleep. And then once I wake up, then I realize that, oh my days, how much opportunities I have missed on. Sometimes Pisces is connected to unrealistic views in the world because it is a reminder that we do need to listen to our gut feelings. What we are told and what we see is not always the reality. And when we have got very high expectations, which Pisces is very keen on or has got a tendency to do so, then we might start being misled or lied to. Or, of course, these unrealistic expectations can lead to disappointment. And then what we do is we end up crying in our bedroom. We want to be listening to soppy music and we want to run away. We want to be on a remote island. So one of the key which gets highlighted here in your chart is to have realistic expectations towards something. This month we have plenty of Piscean energy going on. We have got a stellium. Of course, we are having the sun and the moon in this sign. We've got Neptune and Jupiter. Later on, we are going to be having Mercury here also. So I think one of the key success factors to this Pisces new moon is that we are going to be dreaming big because we have got all the necessary tools to manifest something in our life. But these dreams need to be realistic and it needs to be based on facts. So there is an element of need to kind of balance our rational mind with our intuition, knowing that forgiveness is one of our greatest assets. No point in wallowing in our hurtful moments or in our pains, because what we do is then we kind of create new karma, and then we go ahead, this is going to be resonating with us, that pain is kind of always going to be kind of like pricking, and it becomes a subconscious memory. And I'm not going to remember anymore why I have been hurt, but why I'm making certain type of decisions. Pisces is like a karmic, cosmic womb. So, for instance, being angry with someone or having resentments towards one person, and then I will carry these energies into the future because Pisces is about endings, so Aries is going to be about future, the new beginning of things, and then it's going to be influencing us in a very negative way. So one of the key success factors with Pisces is to be able to surrender, to let go of something, the unhealthy detachments. No wonder Pisces and Virgo axis in traditional astrology is something to do with the health. The health department, in a sense that, you know, we've got a practical side of the Virgo, which is kind of like knowing that I have to be looking after my physical body, because if I don't do so, then our spiritual body is going to get hurt also. So Pisces is something to do with your aura, really. And it is very important that we take care of our aura so that our physical body is able to actually heal itself also. So of course it works vice versa. So if you don't look after one, the other one is being affected. We're talking about a cosmic energy here. So instead of being bitter, we must be able to place ourselves into other people's shoes. And that is what we call as compassionate love, which is a Piscean trait. But I think compassionate love is one of the hardest things. We can do that with our toddlers, with our children, but it's very hard to not having expectation towards others, because Pisces is said to be loving and caring and so forth, but this is also something to do with the give and take. If I give you love, then I want something back in return. And Pisces wants to love, so they are also being loved by others. So what Pisces does is that it tends to become the savior or the martyr. They tend to be sacrificing plenty of things in their lives, but kind of like it becomes endless. So knowing how much boundaries I have to be creating is also very crucial with Pisces. Just imagine that you lend money to someone. Eventually, next day, they might end up asking you a favor again. It might not be money related, but, oh, can you drop the kids to the school? Or the next day, and then it becomes kind of like an endless circle. So which role tend to be playing? The martyr, the savior, or the persecutor? And this could be a major topic of this new moon here. It's very much about the universal flow. And what I meant by the give and take aspect, because the give and take is very much about the Taurus and the Scorpio axis, by the way. But what I meant by it is that there is this universal balance which we have to create. Universal balance means for me that if I give you something, you are meant to be giving something back also. And we tend to be meeting people who are trying to reflect these to us. And that's definitely going to be the topic, because this new moon is being conjuncted by Jupiter, and Jupiter represents the gurus, the kind of like the teacher archetypes in our life. So what type of people do I want to be surrounded by? Do I have to let go of some certain type of people, maybe false teachers, and looking at new ways of connections also? So you might want to be asking yourself, where does this new moon fall into? Maybe it falls into the 10th house. Then we're going to have to understand the political games, for instance, in the world. Whether you agree with it or not, it doesn't matter. You don't have to agree with it. But how is it not going to affect you? Or maybe you're going to have to place yourself in the other people's shoes, in the public shoes, and kind of knowing that, you know, they have got also certain type of motives. And maybe I'm not aligned with it, but I'm not going to be kind of going on about it all the time. Or maybe it falls into your 7th house. So you're going to have to understand your, let's say, partner's motives or your business partner's motives, because we are all psychologically damaged. And we all have got our kind of cross, as one of my best friends usually say, we all bear a cross. And those crosses are actually making us do something which might be out of our elements also, but still, because we are all thriving in one way or another to security and to kind of create inner peace within us. And that is exactly what the Piscean energy talks about. So your intentions with this Pisces new moon should be around kindness and forgiveness. Probably these are the two biggest themes, what actually it brings into your life. And probably we're going to have to think about in what ways we can be kind to ourselves. Because the other side of the Piscean energy is Virgo, which is very self-scrutinizing, very picky, very judgmental. It's a controlling sign. So in what ways am I trying to control my emotions? And in what ways maybe I'm very scrutinizing towards myself? So Pisces is the sign of manifestation. So I'll give you an example. When someone has got Neptune in the second house, I tend to tell those people that they must be having, let's say, €100 in their wallet, in a green wallet, and they must be talking to that money 3-4 times a day, telling that node that they should be bringing more friends in, and visualizing and kind of having a vision board. So this Piscean new moon is very much about creation of a vision board. What do you want to have on that vision board? And the conjunction to Jupiter is, are you bold enough? Are you confident enough to put your big dreams on that vision board? Because if you have got the confidence, if you know yourself truly, if you know that certain things are not going to play out the bestest way, but then I'm going to be able to tweak on the plans, then what happens is that eventually the universe is going to grant you something. So this is very much about trusting your intuition, but also trusting the universe, that the universe has got the best intention towards you. And one of the reasons why Pisces to understand is difficult, because it's very much about universal flows. And we people tend to be a little bit more materialistic, and we want to grab something. We want to be holding it in our hands, and that's not necessarily Pisces. So Jupiter, as I mentioned, it conjuncts the new moon, and whatever Jupiter touches, it actually magnifies those. So magnifying the possibility of an opportunity, but also magnifying those fears and unhealthy attachments, what we might be having. So there is 2 ways to go about this. Either I'm going to be kind of crying in the bedroom, or I'm going to be trying to finish something off, saying that, you know what, I had enough, let's move on and let's create something better. So with moon, we always have to talk about the key to happiness. And the Pisces new moon is all about learning to trust the universe. You know what, we don't need to control certain type of things, situations. Things are happening the way they should be. Pisces moon is very much of a philosophy of a pacifist. It wants world peace. It wants to kind of remind us that we are all connected. We don't always have to be in our cave, but sometimes we do need to kind of say that, no, hold on, I cannot get involved in that story. And to find that balance is actually very crucial, especially when we are having this Ukraine and Russian war going on. And this is the contemplation, what is happening with certain type of countries. Shall I actually help or shall I not help? So, and then finding that balance of how much I can help so that I'm not stirring up other people's emotions, but how much shall I stay away from these type of problems? And this could be one of the dilemma on a world level. Pisces moon is very much about recovery, because the moon is also representing not just our emotional plane, but our physical plane as well, the body itself, which are interconnected. But it takes a little bit longer to recover. So I can imagine things like, you know what, we're going to be having a charitable cause to kind of build new buildings, for instance, in Ukraine, or to, gather something for them, food and some type of supplies. That's actually very possible. Also, the other side of the Piscean energy is to kind of find mystery in life. It's about believing in magic. It's about being imaginative. And we might want to be actually talking about imagination for a second, because the imagination, as in Pisces being kind of like the 12th house energy, that's kind of like the birth of each thought, which we eventually going to be manifesting with a 3rd house meta, where I'm going to be collecting the ideas and so forth. Some of the thoughts are coming through dreams. Some of them are coming through intuition and all those type of things. So it's kind of like giving a daring to dream, basically, daring to have an idea. This could also be a Pisces new moon topic here. This is very much highlighting how much of a peaceful environment you have. The reason why, because this is falling onto Cancerian dwarf and Cancerian decan as well. So something to do with your home country as well as your home environment is very much emphasized here. And so how peaceful your home environment is. And that could be one of the things which this new moon is actually talking about. It's kind of like the coziness, a cozy bedroom. We want to be surrounded by soft colors and so forth. Pisces moon's nurturing style is something to do with kindness and compassion. It's about giving a helping hand to others. It wants to be kind of having a playful relationship. It wants to be having the ideal relationship. It wants to be sometimes oblivious and forgetting things. So putting something into bed is probably highlighted here for you. Now, I think one of the ways how this Pisces new moon can lose its own way is if you want to save someone, they don't even want to be saved. So very important that you somehow recharge your batteries, and maybe it's about going on holiday, traveling overseas, and so forth. And typically that's what happened with the Piscean new moon, is that when a crisis situation happens, when the shit hits the fan, then we actually want to be escaping from our kind of mundane responsibilities. So I think Jupiter conjunction here is really much telling us to consider our boundaries. What type of unhealthy attachments do we have? Are we drinking? Are we taking drugs? Are we taking, I don't know, painkillers? Kind of like trying to numb the pain, really. And knowing when we have got lack of boundaries, it's very easy to be walked over. So who is actually the person who is trying to walk you over? And you have to kind of let go of that. Now, of course, the positive manifestation of Jupiter is that it might give you confidence to make necessary changes in your life. Or are you going to be falling into someone's trap? Now, one of the reasons why I'm not so optimistic about this new moon, because this is a magical one, it has got kind of like the angelic quality. But there are two reasons why I'm not so optimistic. Let me tell you why. One of them is the conjunction to Nessus. Jupiter and Nessus are very tight at the moment of that new moon. And Nessus is talking about abuse. So are we being abused, or we are emotionally abusing others? There is somehow kind of like a manipulation quality in this energy. And I kind of feel like the world is getting manipulated. Kind of like it's a kind of like knowing that we are like a pawn on a chess field. So in what ways are you getting abused? And this probably tells you that we shouldn't be accepting everything the way we see them. We need to actually see beyond as well. Pisces is the sign of endings, so something needs to be left behind. Sometimes retreating and thinking about things, slowing down for a second, kind of like regrouping your energy is necessary so that you can have a better understanding of how to move forward. And that's going to be the Aries quality the next month. There is, though, a little bit of an meaning of this, of dreaming big or going home, but collecting enough information before actually we start something is important. So, but also the Neptunian quality of this new moon is very much talking about a prison. Now, it could talk about a psychological prison. In what ways? Because think about it, the new moon is about darkness, right? The moon is not visible. So it's kind of like you sitting in a dark room at home, which can be very scary. And it looks like that you are sitting in a prison because hardly there are any windows in a prison. So it talks about your psychological prisons, why are you afraid of something, in what ways you might need therapy or a holistic healing so that you can get out of this prison. Therefore, we're talking about your inner demons and your fears. And that's why sometimes we need therapy with this Pisces new moon. But also on a world scale, it can easily indicate that someone is going to get arrested for some of the actions they have done. Why is that? Because Uranus is sextiling this energy, and Uranus is about prison. Uranus is about criminals, breaking the rules type of energy. So I'm really hoping that someone will get arrested. I mean, I'm not talking about, of course, someone will always get arrested, but I'm talking about those big events here, right? So what do you imagine? Are you imagining that something actually can go wrong in your life, or are you actually dreaming about achieving something? What we think is what we get. And this could be one of the mottos of this Pisces new moon. Maybe, you know, traveling faraway places. Maybe you want to go on a holiday, especially that would be the case with the Scorpio rising sign, because holidays are somehow connected to 12 and the fifth house. Fifth house is something we do for fun, and the 12th house is kind of like a remote island, being on the seaside, being on the beach. So a Scorpio rising might want to be doing these type of things. Definitely, it has got the energy of us not wanting to face something. So, and typically, these are because of some previous event in our life. Piscean energy is about the cosmic warmth. So this is kind of like a portal which gets opened whenever we are sleeping, and then these fears can be entering. So what are your blocks and barriers? Could be something which might be coming up here. And I think it's definitely the topic here, because this new moon has got a very tight semi-square to the Capricornian energy, where we have got Venus, Pluto, Mars, and Vesta conjunction going on. So a semi-square is a 45-degree aspect. It's a little bit similar to Sesqui square, of course, because Sesqui square is 135, so it's the multiplication of the 45. So Sesqui square is something to do with friction between two signs. It's a friction because there is nothing in common between those two. So it somehow talks about the integration of two signs, kind of like a semi-square is more on the internal side, the internal conflict, and the Sesqui square would be more the outer conflict in our lives. So the internal conflict is actually coming up here also as a huge topic. So, but how I see currently that Venus, Mars, Pluto, and Vesta combination is that Vesta is the focal point. It wants us to focus on those Venus Mars conjunction, and Pluto is all about the power behind the scenes. This time around, Venus is gaining speed, thank God. So it's kind of like chasing Mars, come here, let's make peace, let's make sex instead of having war type of energy. But the Sesqui square tends to become a little bit, sorry, the semi-square tends to become a little bit of a self-destructive behavior, especially if it's connecting to Pisces. So I think it's very important to start thinking about the past, what we can learn from the past, and what we need to move on. And maybe you just need to be writing a letter to your old self, you know, kind of like a reminder of, you know what, I want you to change. And the fact that Uranus is very tightly sextiling this energy wants you to liberate from your fears. It wants you to kind of do a major breakthrough. Maybe because it's in the sign of Taurus, maybe in regards to your financials, maybe your attachments to the past, maybe around your insecurities. So finding new ways of getting your self-confidence back. Jupiter conjunction to new moon. And I kind of would like to point out, even though Mercury and Saturn might not be playing a significant role here in this chart, but they are actually having a very tight conjunction. And that is happening on 19 degrees. So not so much of a aspect going on between them, between the new moon, but but any type of conjunction is always a kind of like a marker also what we should be expecting. And a Saturn-Mercury conjunction is about how much can I talk? It's about serious discussions. It's about slowing down for a second our thinking process and kind of like having a thoughtful discussion with someone. So I'm guessing around the 2nd, 3rd of March, there is going to be further discussions going on. Now, the problem with Saturn and Mercury, that it doesn't want to listen. So it can be very stubborn, especially in the sign of Aquarius, because that's a fixed energy. So where these conversations are going, I'm not so hopeful about it, if I really want to be frank. But because Saturn represents the past, it could be really, and Aquarius is the future, it could really talk about ways of talking about the past and then how we are moving forward, how we actually kind of, you know, heal whatever drama we are having. Kind of like it's putting your thinking hat on to kind of create a plan, to kind of talk about your fears, address the problems, and then kind of putting that into a dustbin overall. So there is a need to somehow reframe, restructure your way of thinking about something. You're going to have to be mentally disciplined, kind of not getting too nervous or not cutting in while others are talking. It's very much about focus. So Saturn and Mercury, on one hand, can talk about contractual agreements. It could really talk about the voices the authority figures are actually giving us. It's about decision making. And the fact that new moon is actually sextiling Uranus, you know, it might be helping to speed some of the restrictive Saturnian qualities up a little bit. It's very much about breaking grounds, really, kind of breaking the mold, trying something different. So what I'm really feeling is that in the world, there is going to be different type of communication or new ways of limiting, for instance, Russia. And hopefully that's going to be quite effective overall. I kind of feel like that with that Uranus sextile, it's about breaking off your mental chains and looking at the world in a completely different way. Somehow I kind of feel like this is the rebirth of 2022. Sometimes it does bring in uncertainty. Jupiter telling us that we shall trust our inner knowing, and also we should have some type of faith, knowing that inner peace is actually possible. Now, another frustrating thing I'm having with this new moon, apart from the Nessus, as well as the semi-square, but this new moon is very tightly opposing Orcus. So we did speak about Orcas before, but to kind of summarize that for our new viewers, Orcus was discovered in 2004, February, by 3 guys. It's a trans-Neptunian object, kind of like a dwarf planet. Also, it's called a little Plutino. And I tend to be looking at Orcus as in the counterpart of Pluto. So Orcus can show us in what ways we can actually heal our Pluto. It has got a 245-year orbit, so it's a little bit of a slow object, really. He was the son of Ares, so the god of the underworld, not like Pluto because he was the ruler, but he was somehow kind of like a pawn in there. But from an astrological perspective, this is really talking about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The conscious mind is something which we are aware of. The subconscious is something which we are not aware of. And because we're talking about escapism with all the Piscean energy, this Orcus is kind of really talking about digging deep into our subconscious. By the way, Orcus talks about curses in our chart or punishment who break their oath or swearing. It's the punisher of the condemned. So actually, I'm expecting that there is going to be some type of betrayal going on around this war situation. And unfortunately, they are going to get punished. They are going to get cursed. And this is what Orcus is kind of talking about. So Orcus is somehow related to the Furies in a sense. And the Furies are all about vengeance overall. It talks about the hidden truth, the truth you are trying to hide from yourself. Those are not factual truth. That's more Mercurian trait. This is the deeper spiritual truth, what we kind of have to be discovering in our life. It's about spiritual honesty, but it also talks about broken promises, the lies we are telling ourselves and to others as well. And these are very highlighted, which needs to be discovered. So I'm not so positive about this new moon, and probably you're going to hear plenty of positive things on different channels, because it really looks angelic. It really looks positive with the Jupiter, Pisces, manifestation, and all those type of things. But there is an underworld here. And with Orcus, we do need to purify some of the souls here. We do need to somehow go through some pains to involve. It's about confession. It's about the psychological projection we tend to be putting onto others, kind of like it's Freudian slips. So I can really imagine with this Orcus opposition, which is, by the way, the tightest aspect of this new moon, is that someone is going to be slipping up, and we're going to start kind of looking behind those words. So learning to recognize our Freudian slips, learning to recognize what other people are telling us, kind of like having that intuitive antenna and picking up on those. I think it's one of the message of this new moon. Somehow kind of leaving some of our addictions and habits behind. Orcus does talk about developmental stages in our lives, something which is very much about our subconscious. But from a mundane perspective, as I said, it talks about legal matters, governmental lie, broken oath and promises, and perjury. And I'm expecting to see that unfolding somehow in the next few weeks. Yeah, so this is pretty much the energy of the new moon, which is coming up. So somehow it is centered around spirituality, the unconscious, the invisible world of your hours. It could really talk about if things are not settled in your life, then it could be quite chaotic. It's very much about the realization of the bigger picture in the world as well as in your life. And it's about looking at your healthy and unhealthy detachments. By the way, the chart shape is also very interesting here, because this is a wedge. Wedge means that the planets are within 120 degrees from each other. And wedge charts in the astrological chart is kind of like talking about finding the purpose in life, finding finding a meaning to life, really. And with the wedges, typically the most important parts are the first and the last planets. And what you will be able to see here is that the first and the last planet are Pluto and Uranus. So Pluto is about demolishing some type of power, and Uranus is liberating those power. So I'm really hoping that one of the governments is going to fail here, basically. That's what I'm trying to, that's what I'm kind of hoping. Because what you see with the wedge is that typically the planets are in 4 zodiacal signs. So there is an extreme focus on one part of our life. it does talk about obsessive quality. Typically, these energies are all about talent, but we do need to be learning to focus on the other parts of the chart as well. They kind of have got this superhero type of quality. So it's very possible that a superhero, maybe Superman, is going to be flying on the sky and then somehow doing something. But there is also this psychological inflation, psychological exaggeration going on with the wedges in the chart. This is about risk taking. This is about winners and losers. That's what bundle or wedge talks about. So for me, there is going to be someone who is going to take a huge risk to do something about this situation going on in the world. But also, on a personal level, it does remind you that you should take risks, that you are a superhero, and you're going to have to remember those. So guys, thank you very much for listening to my new moon report. I hope it helps to navigate your life with astrology a little bit. And then if you are interested, please go and check out my membership zone, where you can get weekly forecasts, you can get a little bit more breakdown, as well as discounts on readings. And I would like to announce that all of my astrological services readings are 30% off till 15th of March. So you can book in your spots because it's going to get filled up very quickly. And also all my webinars and courses are 50% off too. So thank you for listening and see you very shortly. Bye-bye.